Hey guys, what's up? 3,000 subscribers! Yes! Thank you very much for that. I'm preparing a special video for that to commemorate the occasion. It will be uploaded next Sunday, so stay tuned for that. And once again, thank you. That's awesome and it rocks. Now, top 10 Persona games. Recently, I finished Persona 5 and I actually made a video about it, a long video on my thoughts about it. A long video for a long game actually, and you can watch it. I will leave it at the end of this video so you can go and take a look if you're interested in knowing my thoughts, my full thoughts on the game, not a review, just my thoughts. So I wanted to make this video after playing that one because that one, Persona 5, was the last Persona game I needed to play in order to make this video. It was the only one I was missing so I can complete my top 10 of the Persona games. Now, there aren't 10 main Persona games, so I am including spin-offs, of course, to complete the top 10 and share this with you guys. So with that in mind, let's begin. Number 10, Persona, the first one. Well, I hate the PS1 original called Revelations Persona. You probably already know that. But okay, I listened to all you people who said that the PS port was much better, and guess what? I didn't hate it. It's still as annoying as the original since the dungeons are horrendous and they all look the same. You still get into a lot of random encounters, but at least the battle theme is awesome enough to make me want to get into them so I can fight while listening to it. But the thing is, not much changed from the original, not in my opinion anyway. But slight improvements were here and there, so I don't feel as angry as I felt when I played the original for the PS1. Both are good games, but they include things that bother me as a gamer, so that's why this one stays on number 10. On a side note, for those who don't know, the original Persona, Revelations, is actually a spin-off of the Shin Megami Tensei series. It was so successful after the third one that it became its own series, and nowadays they're not being called Shin Megami Tensei anymore. In fact, the first one didn't even have that name on the title until its port for the PSP, but that's another story for another time. Number 9, Persona Q Shadow of the Labyrinth. Persona Q is a spin-off of Persona 3 and 4, released as an exclusive for the 3DS. It's a dungeon crawler in first person with great backgrounds and layouts. Obviously the plot makes little sense, but it's fan service, so if you're a fan of either game or both, and if you like the characters, then you're gonna have a blast playing this cool spin-off. You can choose between which main character you'll play as, the Persona 3 protagonist or the fourth one, but in the end both casts of characters are controllable allies, so there's no wrong in choosing either protagonist. The difficulty is perfectly fine as long as you're used to the Persona mechanics, but even if you're not, you still get easy tutorials at the beginning, so you'll be able to play the game just fine and perhaps give the originals a try someday. Music, graphics and gameplay mechanics are fun. You're not just beating monsters and dungeon crawling, even though that's the main point of the game, you're also solving puzzles, so the term repetitive doesn't really belong here, even though it can get a little redundant at times, but as a spin-off, well, it's decent enough and totally recommended. Number 9, Persona 4 Arena Ultimax. I rarely get to talk about these awesome games in this channel because it's mostly RPG oriented and these are fighting games, but I mentioned before in previous videos I believe, and I'll just say it again. They're awesome! Made by Arc System Works, the same guys who made the BlazBlue fighting games, these two spin-offs are extremely addictive, and if you're into 2D fighting fast-paced styles, you'll love them. Seriously, the idea of summoning your personas and battling against most other characters from Persona 3 and 4 is just a lot of fun. Now, why does Ultimax get the 8th place and not the 7th? Well, that's because I'm a story guy and I really fell in love with the story of the first Persona 4 Arena, which I'm about to talk about. and Ultimax was not exactly a letdown. The story was still great, but I felt the game too short this time and more focused on one single short story through both casts of characters, perhaps to reduce the heavy visual novel aspect the games had. Either way, I still fully enjoy this game, and I think that even people who don't like the Persona titles will definitely enjoy it as well. Now let's talk about the first one. In terms of battle system, Ultimax is superior, but I wouldn't say vastly superior. Nope, just slightly. If you're gonna have a couple of battles against the computer or against your friends, I'll definitely recommend Ultimax instead of this one, even though this is actually extremely good as well. But if you're in for the story, you'd rather play this. I'm not gonna spoil anything for you, but I have to say that the new main character this game has is very likable and you're rooting for her the whole time. Like I said, its story gameplay includes a visual novel aspect, which means you'll be reading a hell of a lot in this game. Because here, unlike in Ultimax, you get to play the story through every single character the game includes from Persona 3 and 4, which means there are several routes to play. So it's a long game in story mode, but trust me, it's totally worth your while. And guess what? Both games are actually considered sequels to the original RPGs for the PS2, so if you're a fan of those games, you just can't miss these two awesome fighting games. Number 6. Persona 4. Now let's get into one of the main titles. It's Persona 4. I have only played the PS2 version, and I know the golden version for the PS Vita is allegedly superior, but since I haven't played it, I can't include it on the list. The original, however, was a pretty solid entry in the series, and the one to blame for its current massive popularity. This is the game that turned the Persona series into a mainstream franchise, and it's probably the most popular and beloved one. So I'm sorry if I'm not putting it on the first places of the list, but it's just my opinion and I'm not exactly fond of the game. I did like it and enjoy it. After all, the gameplay mechanics are as addicting as the other Persona games, but I found the story and the characters to be cheesier than ever and heavily stereotyped. Not like it was any different in other Personas, but here I felt that to be slightly over the limit and more oriented to the J-pop scene. But hey, don't take me wrong, it's a good game, pretty decent, and you know, if the Vita version is highly superior or not, that will probably not make me think any differently. I played this PS2 version and it was decent enough. Number 5. Persona 3 FES, The Answer. I say The Answer because I'm not actually talking about the original Persona 3, which is also included in this version. I know you'll bash this video with insults or criticism just because I'm putting a spin-off so high on the list, but I don't care. I really love this game, and to me, it's not just an expansion of Persona 3, nor is it a small spin-off included in the first version. No, it's a complete game, a standalone title, and a sequel to the original Persona 3. Sure, you now play as Aegis, and there's no more school simulator anymore, but the rest of the gameplay is almost exactly the same, especially now that it became more like a dungeon crawling game. The story is as good as its predecessor, and the conflict between the characters only grows the more interesting and tense throughout the entire game, which contributes to its length. Yes, it's not a 10-hour game, I'm sorry. It's somewhere around 20 or even 30 hours. That's like the length of any other RPG. Totally worthwhile. So rain on me with the dislikes on this video for putting it ahead of Persona 4. I don't give a shit. I love this game, and that's final. Number 4. Persona 2 Innocent Sin. Innocent Sin originally came out for the PS1, and it was also the original second game in the series, but that version was never localized outside Japan until its port for the PSP. This one right here. I have played both versions and didn't really notice many differences between them, but I could be wrong. I say this because I didn't beat any version. I was halfway through both and I quit due to the fact that they both have some really annoying dungeons. However, leaving that aside, that was enough of a playthrough for me to praise Innocent Sin, so I'll definitely return to it one day and beat it. Now, everyone who has played most Persona games, or all of them, will definitely agree with me when I say that Innocent Sin and Eternal Punishment are the darkest of them all, in terms of story. In this game, you're once again a bunch of high school students with special powers, which has always been the main idea behind the series for the most part, but more oriented to obscure themes of the Japanese culture. Number 3, Persona 2 Eternal Punishment. Now, this game here was the actual second Persona game we've got in North America, so it was officially Persona 2, even though this is a sequel to Innocent Sin. Let me tell you first that it is as hard as Innocent Sin, perhaps even harder. But it's still a great game. You know, what's really important or interesting about playing these two games is that you can clearly see how the developers were starting to mold the ideas behind the following Persona games, which later became vastly popular. Eternal Punishment, however, is the only one in the series so far that doesn't focus on high school students as the main characters. Here you play as Maya, a character from Innocent Sin actually, who's a reporter, and a new cast of characters that are definitely not students. Another interesting fact is that whether its fans play this game before all the others, or after, or in between, most of them are always saying this is the best in the entire series. Granted, it's a very original, dark and more adult-oriented title, but everyone's got a different opinion. Perhaps they say that because you don't play as high school students here, and I agree, but who knows anyway, the truth is it's a great RPG and a cult following classic. Number 2, Persona 5. Perhaps it's because I recently finished this game that I'm putting it so high on the list, but I don't think I'll regret it later. Because the truth is that Persona 5 was a really good game, one of the best Persona titles I've ever played, and its astonishing 85 hours length was totally worth my time. Just like most of the others, it's once again a life and school simulator where you meet different people and create bonds with each one of them to strengthen your personas. The gameplay is as fantastic as all the others, slightly better in my opinion since it now included a different aspect on the dungeons. In all previous Persona games there was only one single place to go and fight your way through the main story. In Persona 5, however, there were now two different places. Palaces and Mementos. Mementos was your everyday dungeon crawler, sure, but the palaces were the big difference since each one of them was a completely different dungeon than the other, just like in the first two Personas. I could go on praising this awesome game, but I would rather invite you to watch its own video, which I'll leave at the end. Number 1, obviously Persona 3. Well, I've already said this is my favorite Persona games in tons of my other videos, so it's no surprise it takes the throne. This is the first Persona I ever played and one that baffled me for its original structure and fulfilling life simulator. I have never played a game like this before, so it was a completely new experience for me. So many good memories come from it, especially from some of the characters, but mostly for its cool and very addicting gameplay mechanics. Of all the other Persona games, this is the one I like the best because of very simple reasons actually. There's the nostalgia factor for once, but as for the others, it's just that I like the story more, the music, the gameplay, the battle system, etc. Speaking about battle systems, this is the only game in the entire series in which you cannot choose your allies' actions. They act for themselves and can every once in a while counterattack your own strategy, messing up every now and then. But to be honest with you, I didn't really suffer that much from it since the AI in this game, for the most part, is, well, passable, and in the end, it only adds up to the challenge, which I thought was cool. So, great game, greatest Persona title in my opinion, and yet definitely another cult following classic. Okay guys, that's it. Thanks for watching. And don't forget that this is only my opinion. These are, in other words, my 10 favorite Persona games, and that's why I chose this order for the entire top. So share your own top 10, share your thoughts on this video, share your thoughts on the Persona series. Let's have a conversation and a discussion about it as usual. Even if you haven't played all of them, and if you only play a handful of them, 3, 4, 5, I don't know. Either way, I'm interested in your opinion as usual. So thanks again for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!